A great tactician creates plans. A good tactician recognizes the soundness of a plan presented to him. A fair tactician must see the plan succeed before offering approval. Those with no tactical ability at all may never understand or accept it, nor will such people understand or accept the tactician. To those without that ability, those who possess it are a mystery. And when a mind is too deficient in understanding, the resulting gap is often filled with resentment.
Myth Ra Naruto, better known as Grand Admiral Thrawn, a name that carries great weight and springs terror into his enemies. A man dedicated to preemptive attacks and world order and peace. A tactical genius that the galaxy had never seen and will never see again. Someone at the front of the battle lines, able to defeat almost any, is virtually, without an argument, the most brilliant organism ever. He was a Chiss, born and raised in the Chiss ascendancy. Initially noticed for his exceptional skills and grades at his academy, he soon became sought after the Patriarch, the leading member of the families, and the Patriarch wanted to find them for themselves. This led to him becoming a trial born of the 8th ruling family, the Myth. Thrawn was incredibly intelligent, someone that went to very great ends to protect his ascendancy, and to do this, he had to scope out what this new empire was that had replaced the Republic in lesser space.
I have brought peace, freedom, justice, and security to my new empire.
Darth Vader, a macabre, twisted, selfish, and depraved version of his once heroic self. The man who would attempt to achieve victory by any means possible, augmented by his incredible reservoirs of midichlorians and the training of the most influential person in his life, Sheev Palpatine, better known as the Emperor or Chancellor Palpatine. Darth Vader was someone that was driven by hate and consumed with grief and regrets for his actions. These two great militants will be analyzed today to see who was better at warfare and leadership. Everyone in the known galaxy would agree that these two men were a dominating presence, and both were worthy opponents for all. 3 determining factors will be used to determine the victor. Who was better at combat, which includes strategies, who was better in inspiring troops, and their achievements. Moving on to the first argument outlined in the introduction, who was better at combat and combat strategies. Darth Vader has an unfair advantage in who is better at fighting. After all, he has the Force and has mastered all 7 forms of lightsaber combat along with being the Chosen One. His suit is practically impervious to blaster bolts, and it is rare for him to be even hit by one, for he is a master of deflecting the bolts away and back at his adversaries. An example of a skill would be that he has single-handedly ended the lives of at least 1,744 enemies, which is a very, very low estimation. This proves that he is highly skilled in the art of killing, and he has also ended the lives of more Jedi than any other being in the galaxy's history. Darth Vader was someone that could turn impossible odds on their heads on the battlefield, and was almost unbeatable in single combat, and was always in the thick of the battle. Thrawn has the advantage in combat strategies. Both are very skilled and have a lot of talent in this war area. Thrawn, however, is bounds ahead of everyone else in this field. A common saying applied to him is that he is playing 40 chess, and everyone else is playing checkers, which isn't a joke. An example was when he defeated an entire Separatist fleet with only 3 cruisers and 9 snub fighters. He used the weakness of the droid ships that his enemy employed and proceeded to obliterate them thoroughly. While only in his 20s, Thrawn defeated an entire fleet with trained enemies worthy of being deployed by Darth Sidious. This is one of the 100 of examples that show his utter brilliance. Both soldiers are very close in each of these specific aspects of war. It is impossible to award either of the categories points. So, to wrap it up with a neat bow, Thrawn and Vader will each be given half of a point for this category. With the first question answered, the attention will now be focused onto the second question, who is better at inspiring their troops? Starting with Darth Vader. He has a very different way from inspiring forces than almost anyone else in the entire Empire, other than perhaps Grand Moff Tarkin or the Emperor himself. He inspired his troops with fear and unspoken threats that would give them somewhat of a panic and an adrenaline rush that often made his soldiers very successful. Those who were not incurred his wrath. His soldiers knew the consequences of failure and therefore desperately were pushed to their full potential. He also gained the respect of the 501st Imperial Legion, formerly the Republic's 501st. He would often fight in the muck and trenches with his troopers, getting dirty with dirt and blood and gore of his enemies. An example of this would be when he force-choked Admiral Ozzel to death for failing to squash the rebels in the Battle of Hoth. To strike even more urgency and fear in his troops, he force-choked him in front of Captain Piet, who was then promoted to Admiral. However, Grand Admiral Thrawn oppositely inspired his troops. He is always calm on the bridge, inspiring the same mannerisms with his forces. He never allowed himself to let emotions control his actions in war, which, at times, could make him come off as unsensitive or uncaring. However, this couldn't have been farther from the truth. He very clearly values his troops, only sacrificing them when absolutely necessary. The best example is when he alone goes with the Pakian commandos in the Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy, in which they board a Grisk frigate and attack the other's ship, saving his own ship, called the Springhawk. This shows the dedication that all soldiers look for in their leaders, a quality that men and women die for. Thrawn brought out the absolute best in people and valued soldiers with genuine skill and courage, not those with connections or influential families. These men are talented leaders who can inspire their troops in ways no other officer could. However, the victor is going to be Grand Admiral Thrawn. The decision is debatable, but Thrawn inspires his troops in a more long-term and successful way than Vader. Thrawn developed a man whose goals were limited to becoming logistics support. This man was named Eli Vanto. He then turned him into a great military commander and a great friend. Moving on, there is something that is also very psychologically important: reputation. Achievements earn reputation. These integral pieces of the machine that is the Empire have achieved what many have considered and even stated aloud to be impossible. Darth Vader is someone that earned his reputation as a criminal and the right-hand man of the Emperor. However, as stated earlier, Vader was a master of all 7 lightsaber forms, and often would defeat his enemies with brute force and his immense power over the dark side of the Force. One of the most impressive feats in his service to the Empire was unlocking a literal gate to the Star Wars' version of the Spirit World. He has also gained the right to be called the right-hand man of the Emperor, the most powerful man in the galaxy. Darth Vader also was the cause of the Emperor's death, something that is often very overlooked in the accomplishments of Darth Vader. He is a man that is both famous and infamous, someone heroic and someone villainous, someone strong and someone broken, someone who is simple yet impossibly complex, and someone who dishes out pain and is tormented by it. As Darth Plagueis once states, his name already echoes across the stars. The man is the most recognizable villain in any story ever, and everyone has heard his name in at least some of his tragic story. Grand Admiral Thrawn is not a name that anyone who has heard of him scoffs at. He is known for being able to pick apart a certain species or conjoined enemy apart with ease. He has an intense infatuation with art, for it helps him understand what the species is thinking and how to route their overall forces. He has overcome almost comical odds on multiple occasions, defeating very many with very few. A good example of this would be when, in the book Heir to the Empire, he's able to defeat an Elman rebel task force with a Marg Sable, a trick that he learned from Anakin Skywalker, who learned the trick from the inventor Ahsoka Tano. This is because the Elman are psychologically terrified of attacks that seem to have no patterns or structure. How did Thrawn even know that that was an Elman task force? With his talent of being able to read a species based on their art and intuition and an appetite for knowledge. His reputation is that of an undefeatable warlord, and he is someone that made it to the highest ranking position in the Navy in a very xenophobic empire. He is well respected by his troops, in which he inspires an unwavering loyalty to the Empire and to himself. The Chiss is the brightest of his kind, and maybe of all organisms ever, and he attacks both physically and psychologically, and is very well known by the High Command of the Empire and the ISB. These two mythically powerful men are well known by everyone, and each contestant is known for their own respective attributes. Both were vying for the spot of the right hand for the Emperor, and it is somewhat arguable that they could share that role, but someone has to win the point. Darth Vader barely beats out Thrawn in achievements and reputations. It was a very, very close decision, and it was pretty close. I know I said that. But Darth Vader won by a nose. That does not mean that there is a tie with each opponent having 1.5 points. So, I'm going to give my personal opinion on who I think was better. Well, taking the tie into account, the two contestants will be recapped. Grand Admiral Thrawn is the master tactician and the only non-human in the Galactic Empire's short and bloody history. He is a Chiss, meaning he is blue-skinned and comes from the unknown regions. There are theories, however, that the Chiss are just evolved humans. Darth Vader doesn't really need a recap, but here it is anyway. He is more machine than man and is a master of the dark side of the Force. He kills more Jedi than anyone in history and had the highest midichlorian count in the history of the galaxy, excluding Rey, but we don't talk about the Disney sequels. They were analyzed very critically to see who was better at waging war and leadership. The three determining factors that were used to see who was the best were who was better at combat and combat strategies, who was better at inspiring the troops, and their achievements. There was a tie in this with each member getting 1.5 points, so there is not a conclusive winner going off of the three previously listed factors, and I will give my own personal opinion on who was better after all. These two contestants are very unpredictable and both masters of waging war. They both have extensive experience and skill and rarely are defeated. They are true legends, and now I will settle on who would win, Grand Admiral Thrawn or Darth Vader. So you've gotten through my endless rambling. Good job. No, I will give you my own personal opinion on who is better at waging warfare, and you can disagree or agree with me in the comments down below. I believe that Grand Admiral Thrawn is the better option. While Vader definitely changes the tide of battle very quickly when on the ground or when he is in his advanced starfighter, Thrawn simply is a tactical genius. There is a book that I highly recommend you read, Thrawn Alliances. In this story, there are some small references to the fact that Thrawn has thought of several ways to kill the Dark Lord, which Thrawn allows the slightest of smiles at. We also have to note that he has won countless battles against people with equal or more training and larger fleets. Well, Vader has also done such things, I hear you ask. Well, sometimes that's either just through brute force or intimidation, and that gets him most of the way. Thrawn is impossibly subtle in his actions, and has the complete trust of his troops. Vader's troops constantly have to worry about being choked or executed for almost no reason. Thrawn was so good that he was able to be a fellow Grand Admiral while he was on the other Grand Admiral's ship in Thrawn Treason. He is psychic sometimes, it feels like, and this is why I would award Thrawn the W, but that's just my opinion. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. If you disagree with my proposal or you have some valid points for Vader, then let me know down in the comments below. If this video gets, we'll say 20 likes, I'll make another lore video. I don't think it's going to get 20 likes, but hey, y'all prove me wrong on Read the Stairs. And, yeah, thanks for watching.